G'day guys, and welcome back to the Life Outside podcast, where we share stories from outside to hopefully inspire you to get outside as well. My name is Cam Bostock, and on today's episode I'm joined by my wife, Karis Bostock. We've just come off the Kumano Kodo pilgrimage trail, and today we're going to talk a bit about it, give you guys a little recap and share some of our experience. It was amazing and definitely worth an episode of the podcast. Karis was on the podcast 2 weeks ago by the time you guys are listening to this, and yeah, we kind of previewed this trail and our upcoming travels, and now we've finished the trail, and so we're going to come to you on the other end of it and share a bit about the experience. How you doing, babe?
Yeah, doing great.
Doing good. Yeah, we just had a great hike, so
yeah,
a bit sore. Well,
I'm not
we've
too bad.
recovered pretty well. It's been a couple of days now since we hiked.
I was actually not too bad the day after, we finished
good.
a hike, but I definitely was like, yeah, I don't want to walk. I could walk, but I don't want to.
You were pretty sore during the last couple of days on trail.
Yeah, I was.
Had a few things going on, but we made it through relatively unscathed. And like you said, we're feeling good a couple of days later. We are coming to you right now from a hotel room in Nagoya in Japan. So we're in Japan for a month. The first week of our trip was on the Kumano Kodo, which we'll get into. But since then, we've been to Osaka, Kyoto, and Nagoya over a few days. And finally getting around to filming the recap. If you're watching the video version, we're just like sitting on the floor of a Japanese hotel room. So pretty basic setup, but we're just working with
what we got.
What we got, yeah. But we got all the podcast gear here.
Yeah,
we're fully
it's professional.
Set up. It's just in a kind of a weird spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Kumano Kodo honestly was one of my favorite hiking experiences ever, and I've hiked in a lot of places, but I had the best time. Part of it was probably because I was joined by Karis. We've never done a multi-day hike together.
Yeah.
You've never hiked more than a couple of days before.
Yeah.
So that was a huge part of why I loved it. But it was just a really, for one, beautiful trail. Two, I learned a lot about the spirituality and the history and the culture of the region that we hiked. And it just culminated to be just an epic experience. How did you find it? Was it fun for you, your first multi-day hike?
I loved it, guys. I thought it was awesome. I enjoyed probably every single bit of it, like even the tough bits. I loved it, and I'm already planning, I want to take my cousin Demi here, I want to take my mum and my sister here, and we do the hike. That I've already talked to my mum and my sister, and they're like, we can't do that many kilometers, we have to cut it down a bit more, and I think they would need probably way more less days than camping, but they could definitely do it.
Yeah. I was surprised how much you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I loved it.
Really cool to see. And hopefully, we're going to walk the Camino De Santiago next month. So the Kumano Kodo and the Camino De Santiago are the dual listed UNESCO heritage pilgrimages. There's only two of them in the world. And we're walking them back to back. So I'm glad you enjoyed the Kumano, because the Camino is going to be 4 times as long.
Yeah, this was practice.
6 times as long as far as the days, and way more distance as well. So it was practice.
Yeah, good practice. But I don't know how I'm going to be after more than maybe 15 days on trail.
Yeah, it's the difference between multi-day hiking and actually through hiking, where you're living out there for an extended period of time. But it's in civilization. The Kumano Kodo was relatively in civilization as over the Camino. So I think you'll be fine. Typically, your issue with multi-day adventuring is you hate being filthy.
Yeah.
You want to wash off the sweat and the dirt every night, and you like having the occasional bed, whereas some of the big through hikes that I've done are just the opposite of that. You don't shower for weeks. Sometimes you're just gross and uncomfortable and really, really remote. So you don't see other people and stuff like that. And so these pilgrimages are kind of a bit more down your alley, because you get access to some of the luxuries of civilization.
Yeah. For me, even I learned a bit of stuff about myself on the Kumano Kodo, which was that I don't necessarily need a shower, but I need to jump into some type of body of water that is not the ocean, because that makes my skin really sensitive. But just like the mountain water.
Just to wash the grime and
just
sweat
to
off.
watch the grime and sweat off. And I was like, oh, I'm not itchy tonight. Like, I don't feel like that. So that was like the biggest thing. So then I was like in my brain, oh, could I do a hike that only had those kind of things throughout it?
That's a very interesting proposition.
Yeah.
Because like,
I don't want to test it.
For those who watched like me on the Pacific Crest Trail, we were swimming in rivers or lakes, not every day, but, you know, pretty close to it, especially in some of the mountainous regions.
Yeah.
And so if that's all you need, well, there's a world of opportunity out
Yeah.
there for you.
Yeah.
The problem is, you know, depending where you are, those bodies of water can be insanely cold.
Yeah.
And so it's not like you can stay in there if you get a proper wash or anything.
Yeah.
Unless you're super resilient. But yeah, we had a few swims in rivers along the Kumano Kodo.
Yeah.
And hot springs.
And hot springs, yeah.
And so that, alongside a few showers, we were pretty well looked after.
I think that I've got a bad perception now that I've like hiked this. I'm like, everything's going to be so lovely. Like they're all going to have a town. I'm going to be able to eat every single day. And
not all hikes are like that.
Yeah, pretty much no hikes are like that. It's only this and then the Camino De Santiago. So.
Yeah, definitely. The pilgrimages are definitely a bit of a different vibe to a typical wilderness hike. But we'll give you guys a little overview of what the Kumano Kodo is, for those who have no idea. It's on the Kii Peninsula in the Wakayama prefecture. So we took a 2-hour train. We flew into Osaka, took a 2-hour train south of Osaka to Tanabe, which is not the start of the trail, but sort of the home base for those who are starting. And we stayed there for a night. And then it was a 45-minute bus from Tanabe up to Takajiri, which is where we started our route on the Kumano Kodo. But yeah, located, I guess, south of Osaka, so fairly easy to access via public transport. I mean, you can get from your country to the trailhead, you know, by a plane, train, and bus. So not too hard to get to, which is nice. Although it does take a bit of time from the major cities.
Yeah, you probably want a day to actually travel there. Not trying. We were planning to start on the day we arrived.
True.
And that was not going to happen.
Yeah, we changed our plans and ended up staying in Tanabe instead of starting the hike because it was a bit much.
Yeah.
But yeah, super cool area. The Kii Peninsula is just super mountainous and green and lush, and like there's incredible coastline which you don't walk along on the Kumano Kodo, but you do see at the start and the end, which is really cool. And yeah, the Kumano Kodo has a bunch of different routes typical to a pilgrimage. The main route was the Nakahechi route. Yeah. Nakahechi, that's what I think probably 90% of people walk just based on the vibe I got. But there's like 3 or 4 other different routes. Like there's mountainous routes, there's coastal routes that all kind of culminate in the similar areas. So there's like 3 grand shrines on the Kumano Kodo that is sort of like, you're kind of trekking to these grand shrines. And the different routes sort of just take you there from different ways, essentially. But we took the main route, which is from Takajiri to Nachi, and it's about 70 kilometers long. We walked quite a lot more than that. I think we clocked 95 kilometers total, but we did a few little side trips, like to the onsen. We walked around town a bunch, which I ended up recording all of that. So
we didn't just hike the trail, like we explored town if we could, like. Yeah, and we weren't coming in.
We took pretty much every side route that we could because there's like lots of little offshoots to viewpoints and to shrines and to different things, and we
did them. Yeah,
we took full advantage of it. So we ended up walking over 90 kilometers. We clocked 4,500 meters of vertical gain, and we walked the trail in 5 days. So it was pretty challenging 5 days. Lots of climbing. Most of the track is actually trail. I was expecting more road walking through towns, being a pilgrimage, but most of it's forest and mountain walking. Yeah,
there was only like 4 main sections that were like a road,
a proper road walk. Yeah, there's plenty of towns. You see a town or two every day, but you're mostly walking on trail. So like I loved it because of that. Yeah, it was actually it's a good challenge. I thought it'd just be a walk in the park, but there was some big hill climbs. The trail was never super smooth. There's always roots and rocks and steps.
Yeah, there was lots of people that were hiking it that we had met along the way, and they were like, they just need to get rid of all the roots. And I was like, they're the best steps.
They're so beautiful.
They're beautiful.
And it makes the trail sort of really interesting as well. But it's not a walk in the park.
No, it was quite difficult.
It was quite difficult. Like, you're a first-time multi-day hiker. You found it pretty challenging. We met quite a lot of people out there of different ages, abilities, and I think most people, it was a pretty good challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found it, like, now that I'm thinking back on it, like, it was challenging, but it was nothing I felt like I couldn't do.
Yeah.
Like,
it was within your capabilities.
yeah, it was within my capabilities, and it would be within anyone that is into hiking's capabilities, but they just might need to take it a bit slower or a couple more days, So I think, it's not too hard for anyone that's into hiking. So you've hiked a couple of hikes, you should be fine.
Yeah. Challenging but attainable.
Yeah.
That's probably a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's right.
Most people can do it, but it's like a good challenge.
Yeah.
Which is actually, I think it's a good thing to be challenged when you're outside.
It's going to push you.
But most people, I think, take 6 or 7 days to walk the Kumano Kodo. We did it in 5, and that included like pretty much a full day off. So we sent it pretty hard, but I think most people probably give it an extra day or two.
Yeah.
And you get a day off in that sort of period. And most people, I don't know if most people, but a lot of people will use like tour companies for this trek, don't they?
Yeah.
Would you say most? A lot of people did.
I think a lot of people were, or if they weren't, they were only just doing the day trip. Like they were only getting to like one of the towns or the second town or whatever, and then taking the bus home.
Yeah.
But lots of people that I saw on the trail, they had someone giving them their bags at the end of the...
Yeah, they weren't like guided every step,
No.
but they had logistical help where they had their hotels booked for them.
Yeah.
They just had their packs carried for them, or like transported to their hotels, and just had little day packs and had all the directions written out for them, that kind of stuff. So I think there's like self-guided tours that a lot of people do for this trail, but we found it extremely easy to just do ourselves.
Yeah.
We had no external help. We camped the whole way, so we carried all of our camping gear. We had heavy packs.
And when we say Cam carried all the camping gear.
It was a team effort.
Yes. I don't know about that.
Pack, but yeah, it was very, very easy trail to follow. It was very straightforward. Like I think it's kind of overwhelming, like researching a trail, especially if you're not from Japan, researching a trail here, because there isn't a ton of information out there for a lot of hiking here, especially the Kumano Kodo. But we had zero issues. Like, we did our research beforehand. Our friend Kiera gave us a lot of help with planning an itinerary and places
where
to
to
stay and stuff like that. But I feel like it's very doable. Don't be put off by the logistical challenges or the maybe being overwhelmed with being in another country and not knowing how to do it. We didn't even book anything. We just showed up at Takajiri and started walking.
Which was very dangerous. And we were so blessed. I don't know how we did it, but pretty much we got a spot everywhere. When there was one...
If you're camping though, you don't need to
You don't need to. You don't
Every
really
campsite was completely open and huge, and there is no need to book. You can show up to this hike without booking a single thing.
Yeah.
If you're camping. I think it's a different story if you're staying in accommodation.
But even for that, we went in Golden Week. So that's the craziest time in Japan because everyone's off work for the whole week. And I was like, I just need a bed, a proper bed. And we stayed at this backpackers, and I went in there and he's like, it's Golden Week. I'm like, yeah, I know. He's like, but we had a cancellation.
Yeah,
so
we got lucky.
So we have an extra room. I was like, I'll have that one. Take me there.
That was our one night where we didn't camp.
Yeah.
That's probably a good distinction to make. If you're camping, I would say you don't need to book a thing. Mm-hmm. But if you do want accommodation, I think you should book well ahead because there isn't that many accommodation options in these small towns out in the mountains. And they typically, I think, book out pretty fast.
Or they're like guest houses. You need to book in advance.
Yeah, but you literally can camp every night. And there's beautiful campsites.
Oh, they're amazing.
And I would have not wanted to miss those campsites.
Yeah.
They were so nice.
Some of them, it would have been nice to have 2 nights there, especially that one that we first went to where we were by the river. And
you were by the river and all the campsites.
Yeah, that's true. But this one had
Takatsu,
Yeah, that was
we didn't get to swim there.
But yeah, that's so lovely. But yeah, if you are a bit worried and you'd rather have someone plan it all ahead, then I definitely suggest
there are options.
Yeah. they even give you lunch. Like those people had lunches already packed for them. So like they didn't even have to worry about buying snacks or anything.
I don't want to know how much it costs though.
Yeah, I was gonna say
the whole
that
thing.
it would probably cost you an arm and a leg for it.
Yeah,
and
but for some people that's
worth it for them.
Yeah,
completely understandable. And if you don't want to carry a heavy pack, and Cam carried the heavy pack, like I was really lucky. So I had, my Sherpa.
Yeah, but it was just a fun hike for me. So I wanted to carry all the gear and set up camp, and just
that was so
that
good.
was the experience we were looking for.
I was definitely a hike princess. Cam would set up the tent for me.
Well, I'm just easing you into this. So
he's doing it.
On the second hike, you can carry the tent, and by our third hike, you'll be setting it up.
Great.
One step at a time. But yeah, incredible hike. And Karis mentioned that some people that were getting guided would get their food catered for them and stuff. But we had no issues getting food really either. Most of the little towns had a general store, and you can get snacks, and we cooked our own meals. Like we'd buy ramen and bacon and like mushrooms. We did that one night. We cooked up a nice feed. I would say we probably didn't bring enough calories with us on some of the days because
we didn't realize.
I think the trail was just harder than we thought, and so we ate a lot. But we could have brought more
we
snacks.
could have. But in the whole hike, I only saw 2 main big convenience stores. One was when the first day that we hiked.
You mean supermarkets?
Yeah, supermarkets. Sorry.
Yeah, there wasn't many big supermarkets.
Yeah, so there was only one, and that was in Takatsu
had a big supermarket.
Yeah, and then also the second last town, which was Ko.
Yeah, Hongu didn't really have a supermarket.
So they had little tiny stores.
But you could find food, like there's bakery.
Yeah, you can have food, but it's just that if you wanted to go full shop, they were only the 2 ones.
Yeah, you're never going to find a full shopping at any of these remote towns, but what they did have was enough.
Yeah, it was fine.
We had no
if you had ramen, and then you can add some veggies if you find veggies, or bacon. We were lucky that second last night. Oh
Koguchi.
No, the last night. Yeah, Koguchi. That had all bacon in the fridge. There was a fridge.
Yeah, there was plenty of food.
Yeah.
So there's no issues there. But we'll do a little recap of our hike. Okay. So we spent 5 days out there. Mm-hmm. We'll briefly go through each day. We're not going to spend all day here talking about it, but I'm
sure you'll see it on the socials anyway.
Yeah, we will both be posting. Well, by the time you're listening to this, all of our content will be up. YouTube.
Maybe not mine.
Instagram.
I'm a bit slow. But Cam's will.
Yeah, check it out, and you'll be able to kind of see a bit of what we're talking about, which will be cool. Day 1, we started in Takajiri, and we walked to Chikatsuyu.
Yeah. That was a mountain and a half.
Yeah, the trail starts going straight up. Yeah. It was a couple hour climb.
It was 400 meter vert?
No, it was more than that. It was 550 or 600.
Oh, okay.
So 4 kilometers into the trail from Takajiri, you reach Takahara, which is the first town stop. Mm-hmm. And it's just all climbing to Takahara. Yeah. Takahara is beautiful. You got the viewpoints. Yeah. There's a little coffee shop set up there. And
a cat.
And cats.
The cat.
Cats love the cats. So we grinded out that first hill. We stopped for coffee in Onigiri.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will stop at Takahara for day 1 as a very short sort of introduction to the trail. Mm-hmm. It's just 4 or 5 kilometers.
Yeah.
But we continued on to Katsuyu. And so day 1 for us was about 18 kilometers, including all the side trips and the walking around town. And
Chikatsu has the supermarket, and that's where we camped by the river.
We camped at Iris Park.
Oh, yes.
Iris Park campground, which was really nice. I think it was 2,400 yen per person to camp. So it's actually the most expensive campsite by far. It was a great spot.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
The owner was really nice. We got there just before closing. We finished quite late. Found us a spot by the river. It was lovely. There was there's a huge supermarket there.
That's a proper one.
A proper supermarket.
That's the only one, I'd say.
We stocked up there and spent the night in Chikatsuyu.
Mm-hmm. And that also, for that camp spot, there's only onsens, like a women's one and a men's one. So you will be showering with other people.
If you want to shower, it was like onsen sort of set up.
But there's also a river there, so you can
we didn't even use the shower or the river. We just, it was day 1, we were like, we can be filthy for one night.
Yeah, I was like, I don't care. I didn't want to go on the women's one.
I've got my stats here. So yeah, we did 18.7 kilometers, 1,100 meters of vertical gain on day one.
Oh, that's
So it's
good.
pretty big day. Day two, we started obviously in Takatsuyu. We that campground, Iris Park, was like a kilometer off trail.
Yeah.
So that's why we ended up walking a bit further. I think the trail distance to Takatsuyu is 17 kilometers. We walked like 19. Part of that was walking off trail to get to the campground. So we walked back to the trail, and day two was our biggest day by
Yeah.
far. We walked all the way to Hongu,
Yeah.
which usually Hongu is like night 3 or even night 4 for
Yeah.
a lot of people. For us, it would be night 2.
We smashed it.
Yeah, we walked 29 kilometers on day 2, which was your biggest hiking day ever.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that also there was a point where we were hiking up and the gravel was like kind of like a trail that I've done in like Australia, and I was like, nah, I hate this.
Yeah, there was a few solid hills.
But then after we got past that area, I was like, oh, I love it again. Like after that hill, we got up there.
Yeah.
And also we had eaten all our snacks that night before. So we had...
Day 2 is where we ran out of snacks for the last like 5K because, we just underestimated how much we would need.
Yeah.
But remember, we found that vending machine just before, like just towards the end of the day, and we got a Coke, and that kind of like got
that
us
was
to
good.
the end.
Yes, that's right.
But 29 kilometers, another 1,100 meters of elevation gain. And I think the first 8 kilometers out of Chikatsuyu, about 8, was on the road. So we're walking through like villages.
Yeah, that
and
was
stuff.
lovely.
So that was actually pretty easy.
But it was still up the hill.
And we found this little, kind of like little cafe on the side of the road.
Oh, yeah, with the French dude.
And this French guy, this French guy was just living in the middle of nowhere. He moved to Japan a couple of years ago, and set up shop on the Kumano and was making just great coffee and great little sandwiches.
Little Sammys. Oh,
so that was nice. And then, eventually we hit the trail again, and it was about 20 kilometers on trail for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Beautiful day.
It was such a lovely
Every
day.
day was just beautiful. Like you're walking through forest most of the time, so you're not getting views super often, but the forest is spectacular.
Oh, it's insane.
Super
I think that's
lush.
what I loved about it, is like just the scenery of the forest.
Yeah.
I was like, I love the forest.
Forest was so green, and like
water
the first and last third of each day where the sun's coming through the forest at like a diagonal, beautiful light for filming, which we took full advantage of, but just beautiful to walk through. And then you climb a hill and you get a sick viewpoint at the top. And
so beautiful.
that was pretty much every day, but definitely day 2 was very much like that, and streams flowing and rivers flowing, just amazing. So day 2 was epic. We reached Hongu.
Oh, that's also where we went to one vantage point and we saw was it a Torigate? What, the one in the background?
Yeah, that was at Hongu, the Hongu Torigate.
And I looked at the Torigate because I was so over it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I came all the way up here to see that. It's pretty, but oh my gosh. But then when you go down to Hongu and actually see how big,
it's huge.
It's insanely big.
Yeah, there's this giant Torigate at Hongu that's quite famous and a big part of the hike. But you can see it from a few kilometers away at this viewpoint, which is very cool. But we got to Hongu, realized because of our lack of planning that the campsite we were going to stay at was an extra 3-kilometer walk.
And I was like, no.
Out of town.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was buses running because we got in really late.
Yeah, there was nothing.
And so we were like, crap. We were so done. It was like, almost 30 kilometers. You were pretty...
I was like, get me in to a bed now.
Yeah, so you went and checked out the backpackers, and like you said earlier, they had a cancellation. We got a spot, so that was really nice. And day 2, it was a success. We got a shower and a bed for the night, and we walked a long way. And because we walked so far in day 2, we're like, day 3, we're going to have a day off to actually properly explore Hongu. That's actually what Kiera suggested for us, our friend Kiera, who guides on the Kumano Kodo. Actually, I'll leave Kiera's links below because she's an incredible wealth of knowledge about this trail. And also she does like guided trips, women's only trips actually, but I'll leave that below. But she suggests, I said to Kiera, we're going to walk all the way to Hongu on day 2. She's like, that's pretty far. I would suggest having your 3rd day off to explore.
It was a good
Hongu
idea.
And surrounds, which is a great idea
glad.
because Hongu's really amazing. One of the 3 grand shrines of the Kumano Kodo is in Hongu.
And you would miss on the onsen village.
And then, near Hongu is Yononame Onsen, which is one of the oldest onsens in Japan, and definitely something you don't want to miss.
It's beautiful down there. And we were so blessed. So we went down there and we were just like checking it out. And we went down to where they were cooking, like there's a part where there's like, it's 60 degrees in the water, like, and they've like put a section there, like built it up, and people cook their veggies and their eggs there. And so we were like there talking with the locals about it. And then they gave us eggs that they had cooked and we were eating them all together. It was such a beautiful memory. I loved it.
Yeah, the hot spring water is so naturally scorching that they were cooking eggs and vegetables in it.
So lovely. And then Cam had his very first onsen experience.
Yeah, well, before we even got to Yononame Onsen, we saw
sorry.
the Hongu Grand Shrine.
I got too excited.
We saw the Hongu Torii Gate. So we walked around town. And then we hiked 3 kilometers across over a mountain to Yononame.
He said that it was a rest day.
Yeah, we did we ended up walking like 12 kilometers, I think, on our rest day. But yeah, like you said, Yononame Onsen was cool.
So beautiful.
I had my first onsen experience there. Like went into the men's public medicine onsen or whatever it was
Kusuri.
called.
Yeah.
Super nice, beautiful town as well. Yeah, like Kara said, you can't miss Yononame.
Yeah, and you would if you just passed.
If you just walk the trail, you don't walk through Yononame. You have to kind of take this side trip or take the alternate route of the Kumano, which cuts off a bit earlier. But beautiful town just to walk through, and then there's quite a few cool things there to do as well with the onsens and the sights and the sounds. So that was really cool. And then we eventually made it to our campsite that we initially planned.
And got to walk through that town, which was just as beautiful as well.
Yeah. Our campsite was kind of like in this little village, I guess. And there was like a public outdoor onsen.
My favorite part of the whole trip, I feel like.
At the village as well. So like we're in this river valley camping, beautiful campsite. I'm trying to remember the name of that campsite. I reckon I wrote it down somewhere. No, I didn't write it down, but I'll put it in the show notes because I think people will probably want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just a short walk from our campground was this like hot spring right next to the river, and they'd set it up so anyone could go in there for free.
Yeah. And you could go in your bathers.
You don't have to get nude, which is nice.
Yeah.
And so we walked down there, we spent time in the hot spring, then we'd jump in the river and then back in the hot spring, and it was just like a really nice.
So nice. And we had it to ourselves for a while. Yeah, for like 20 minutes. We had it all to ourselves and we were just in there. Oh, it was so lovely. It was
it's probably really good recovery as well for our legs.
Yeah.
The hot and cold exposure.
I felt great.
Yeah. So day 3 was awesome.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a rest day. We carried our packs about 10 kilometers of walking, but we saw all of Hongu and we saw Yononame and we camped in a really nice spot.
Yeah.
And then day 4, we took a bus from that campsite because it was a little bit off trail, a bus a couple kilometers back to the Kumano Kodo and continued on. So day 4 and 5 were a bit more relaxed compared to our first 2 days, which was nice.
But they still felt hard
because
I felt like because it was like we're still hiking after day 4, I felt like it was longer, even though they were actual shorter days and shorter kilometers. I just felt like it was like longer.
Yeah, the fatigue builds up over a couple of big days like that. But in saying that, we finished day 4 at midday.
Yeah, that's so true.
We got to camp really early.
Yeah.
Because it was just short. We walked 14 kilometers. There was only 600 meters of elevation gain. So like compared to the first 2 days, a lot less effort required.
Yeah.
We were sore still and tired.
Yeah. I was having some ankle issues, but actually that morning I fixed it. Like I just loosened my shoe and that was all it needed.
Helped it a lot. Yeah.
I was fine. I had no pain anymore, so that was good.
Yeah, so day 4 was Hongu to Koguchi. Got there about midday, so we had a very relaxed afternoon, which was nice.
It was snacks.
Yeah, lots of eating.
We did so much eating.
explored Koguchi, which is a nice little town with like rivers flowing through it all different directions, and there's a little general store. Crazily enough, this is a tiny town, by the way. Like there wouldn't be more than 100 people living there.
Yeah.
And there was like 2 really nice coffee shops.
Yeah.
Which was weird. Like right across the road from the general store, there was a great little coffee shop. And then at the campsite we stayed at, there was like a
They just like set up while we
It's
were
like a
going there.
mobile setup, I guess. And there's a couple of Japanese dudes there running it who had previously lived in Australia and spoke a bit like English. And so we had some good yarns with them and made a great coffee. And we got food from there as well.
Yeah, what did we eat? Because it was so good. We got dumplings.
Dumplings and like karage.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a good feed. So we had a very relaxed afternoon. I went for a swim in the river, which our tent was like right next to the river again. And that was the night we cooked like ramen with mushrooms and bacon.
Yeah,
So
because
we had
there
good feed.
was a fridge.
Yeah. So day 4, another incredible day.
Was just so good.
And then day 5, which was our last day, we went from Koguchi to Nachi, which is the end. And there's another grand shrine at Nachi, and Nachi is just like a really famous town in the Wakayama prefecture, just in general, because the Nachi waterfall is just incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
But day 4 ended up being
a massive hill.
Yeah, it was a big hill climb. It ended up being a pretty big day in general.
Yeah.
I think we had 15 kilometers to walk on the cards, and we ended up walking 20 kilometers with our most elevation gain of the whole trip, like almost 1,300 meters.
Yeah, that was the biggest hill on the hike.
The climb out of Koguchi.
And at the end, like when you got to like the temples and the shrines and everything, like it wasn't just like, oh, here's a shrine, now you go on the bus and leave. Like it was a massive area. You had to go.
Nachi's pretty big.
Yeah, you had to walk to the waterfall, and that was on the other side to like the main shrine that we had to get the stamp from, and then we had to go and look at the it was just massive.
It was a big day. I think when we got to Nachi, we had walked like 16 kilometers.
We were over it.
Then we walked like 4 kilometers around town.
Yeah,
and we were kind of over it at that point. I think we were just tired.
We were like, "Get me on the bus. Where's the bus?"
Yeah, I think it was just that hill out of Koguchi. You climb straight up almost 1,000 meters.
It was insane.
And then it's just straight down 1,000 meters to Nachi, essentially.
Yeah.
But it was another beautiful day, and Nachi was incredible. I think part of the reason, like, we were tired, so we're over it. But then Nachi's just so busy, like that many people around,
all tourists and all like everyone was down there because it was a weekend as well.
Yeah, so it was just a bit overwhelming, I think. But the Nachi Grand Shrine, incredible.
Oh, beautiful! The biggest camphor tree.
Was it camphor tree?
I think it was a camphor tree.
There's a beautiful tree at the shrine. It was
insanely gorgeous. And the waterfall, I loved it. It was beautiful.
So there's this famous like red temple. I can't remember the name of the temple, but you get this backdrop of the temple and the waterfall. And it's just an iconic shot.
It's so gorgeous.
And we walked all the way down to the base of the falls as well.
Yeah,
it's the tallest single drop waterfall in Japan, Nachi Falls. Incredibly beautiful. Nachi's worth a visit.
Just by itself.
Which a lot of people were doing.
Yeah.
But if you're obviously hiking the Kumano Kodo, it's a pretty epic way to end the trek. You can also start at Nachi. We met a few people who started at Nachi and were going to Takajiri the other way. But the way we did it was epic.
I thought that was just like such a grand finish.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just finished in
Takajiri, there's not much there.
Yeah, there was nothing really there.
Yeah.
But that day in particular, the forest was so beautiful. It was like, I think one of the second days, but mainly that day, we were like walking alongside the river, and I loved that. Like it was so beautiful.
Yeah. It's nice when you get to follow a stream in the forest, and it's just really.
And that's what we pretty much did. Like you could hear the stream all the time. You could see the stream pretty much most of the sections of the hike on that day.
Yeah, there's a lot of water out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far out overall, incredible hike.
It is my top hike. I have like that one, and then after that is Bukasam, which is in Seoul, and that's only a day trip. That was like 6 hours, but this one, number one, absolutely.
I mean, for those who don't know, we used to live in Japan, Karis and I, and Karis's favorite place in the world is Japan. You love the culture, the language, everything. So I think any hike like of this scale was always going to be your favorite because it's in Japan. That's a big part of it.
I think so too. I think that I could probably do any hike in Japan and be like, yeah, I love it. As long as you get me a town with snacks and have a shower once or twice at least, I'm happy.
Yeah, but like I said, it was one of my favorites as well. And I feel like it wasn't just the hike. It was just like there's so much history to the trail. Like pilgrims have been walking this trail for thousands of years, and it's deeply rooted in the Shintoism, Buddhism, and Shugendo religions, and that kind of like there's like this Kumano faith that melds them all together, and there's just so much history in the region, and it just felt like, you know, almost a privilege to be able to walk that trail that so many had walked before us. And it's just like, obviously they've set it up now, so people who aren't part of those religions have a reason to come. And it's a very touristy thing, but still it was really special.
Yeah, I loved it because there was like history of like kings that like their servants would carry them along that whole trail like that. And
not kings.
Oh, what was it?
Like shoguns or emperors.
Oh, emperors, yeah. So like, and they would just take them along that route, and then we're walking the same route. Like it was amazing. Just what you said, the history
really was. And there was signs everywhere. You could read up about different things that were significant to that part of the trail, and like you can almost envision what it used to look like 1,000 years ago, where there was tea houses lining the trail, and the trail conditions were very different, and it was all a lot more simple. Yeah, really, really cool. I'd highly recommend the Kumano Kodo to anyone interested hiking in Japan. Well worth the effort to get down onto the Kii Peninsula and make it happen. Really amazing. And yeah, it wasn't that expensive. Like, no,
I think the most expensive was
the train getting here, probably. Getting there.
Train's expensive.
Like, yeah, the camping, we probably average spent 1,500 yen per person each night, and the food's a bit more expensive out there, but we cooked all our own food for the most part, and so very affordable, very accessible, very attainable.
Yeah, I think that we probably ate out once or twice. I think just at one cafe in Hongkong.
Yeah, there's a couple of cafes we ate at, but
we just stayed at one backpackers. Yeah, and that was like quite expensive, but that was just one time.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely make it more expensive if you stayed in fancy places and ate out every
But you could definitely
time.
make it more cheaper if you just only camped and had packed all your food beforehand. Yeah, so
epic hike. Feel free to reach out to Karis or I if you have any questions about the trail, and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction or answer them for you, because it's just an epic experience that we've had. And like I said, I'm going to put Kiera's details below, because she's an incredible resource for this trail as well, that we
she
definitely
really
utilized.
Helped us.
All right, well, that's going to end the episode today. I'll be doing these sort of like, I'm calling them trail talk, after I do like a fairly significant trail that I think is worth a whole podcast episode, doing them occasionally, which has been fun, and you guys have been enjoying them. And so hopefully you enjoyed this one today with Karis. Like I said, we're heading over to Spain in a month to walk the Camino De Santiago. So there'll no doubt be, at least one Trail Talk podcast episode recapping that adventure.
Probably with Dan and Emma as well.
Yeah, we're going over with Dan and Emma, who I walked the Pacific Crest Trail with, and another person who I walked and met on the Pacific Crest Trail, Deidre. So yeah, it's going to be an incredible trek on the Camino. I literally cannot wait for that, and it'll tick off our dual pilgrimage. Yeah, we got to get both the passports and both trails done, which is really exciting. So yeah, thanks for listening, guys. If you did enjoy this episode of Life Outside podcast, make sure to follow and rate us 5 stars wherever you are listening. It actually helps us a lot reach new people, and all your feedback is much appreciated as well. But other than that, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.